You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your PMP certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Predictive projects carry a different flavor of discipline compared with agile or hybrid approaches. Here, the emphasis is on baselines, critical paths, and formal approvals. A predictive project manager must show mastery over scope, schedule, and cost control, while ensuring every change follows documented governance. Success depends not only on completing deliverables, but also on protecting the integrity of baselines and artifacts. In this lab, we drill scenarios where pressure rises, but the professional response is always the same. Log the issue, analyze the impact with evidence, seek approval through the correct channel, implement changes, and update baselines or records. This rhythm protects traceability and credibility. The artifacts that matter most in predictive-heavy contexts include the scope, schedule, and cost baselines, the requirements traceability matrix, the changelog, and contracts with their associated clauses. Baselines provide the yardstick against which performance is measured. The RTM ensures requirements are linked to deliverables and validated. The changelog records what is requested and what is authorized. Contracts clarify obligations, terms, and remedies. These are not static documents. They are active tools used to guide decisions and anchor governance. Each scenario in this drill demonstrates how they come together under pressure. A simple sequence helps you stay grounded. Every issue or change begins with a log entry. Analysis comes next. Drawing on artifacts, such as network diagrams, resource reports, or cost models. Approvals follow, routed through change control boards or contract mechanisms. Implementation comes only after formal approval. Finally, updates are made to ensure that baselines, logs, and forecasts remain consistent. This sequence may sound slow, but it is designed to prevent costly mistakes. Skipping steps almost always results in rework or lost trust. Practicing this order builds reflexes that prevent improvisation when deadlines loom. The first scenario begins with pressure on the critical path. An executive demands that the launch date be pulled forward by 10 days. 2 near-critical paths exist, and the team is already stretched. This is not a small request. Shaving 10 days means compressing paths that were carefully planned, often at the cost of increased risk or resources. The project manager must resist the temptation to react instantly. Instead, they must analyze carefully, balancing executive urgency with project realities. Critical path compression requires more than enthusiasm. It requires structured analysis and documented approval. The artifacts to consult are the network diagram, the float report, and the resource histogram. The network diagram shows dependencies and which paths are critical or near critical. The float report highlights where schedule flexibility exists and where it does not. The resource histogram shows current utilization and where additional resources could be applied if crashing is considered. Together, these artifacts allow the project manager to run impact analysis, which tasks can be accelerated, at what cost, and with what risk. Without these, any attempt at compression would be guesswork. The disciplined response is to run an impact analysis, propose a phased minimum viable product if possible, and selectively crash the lowest cost, lowest risk tasks. Crashing means adding resources to reduce task duration. For example, if a design task could be completed in 5 days instead of 10 by adding 1 additional engineer and the cost impact is acceptable, that may be a candidate. By contrast, tasks with high technical risk may not be safe to fast-track. The analysis identifies these trade-offs. The recommendation is then submitted formally for approval, and only after approval are baselines updated. Other approaches are less responsible. Fast-tracking high-risk tasks immediately ignores the need for analysis and may increase the probability of rework. Rebaselining first and figuring out details later undermines credibility. as sponsors see changes without justification. Adding people indiscriminately across the project inflates costs without targeting the bottlenecks that matter most. Each of these approaches sacrifices either evidence or efficiency. By contrast, targeted crashing based on analysis demonstrates stewardship of both resources and risk. It also ensures that governance bodies see evidence before approving major shifts. This case shows why compression decisions must be documented carefully. When executives push for earlier delivery, emotions run high, but decisions grounded in artifacts are defensible. Showing the float report and resource histogram allows stakeholders to see why some options are feasible and others are not. Proposing phased delivery shows agility within predictive frameworks. Value can be delivered earlier without jeopardizing full compliance or quality. Formal approval ensures that responsibility is shared, and that rebaselines reflect deliberate decisions, not hurried reactions. This protects both the project and the project manager's credibility. The predictive analog here is obvious, but there is an agile mirror as well. In an agile setting, the same pressure might appear as a request to accelerate delivery of certain features. Instead of critical paths, backlog reordering and demo planning would be used. Value could be delivered earlier by focusing on priority items, while lower value items are deferred. The principle is the same. Analyze impacts, resequence work deliberately, and preserve quality boundaries. Whether predictive or agile, the rule remains. Structured adjustment is better than reactive promises. The heuristic to carry forward from this scenario is clear. Analyze the paths using network diagrams and float. Deliver phased value where possible to satisfy urgency without overcommitting. Apply selective compression only after cost and risk analysis. Seek formal approval before rebaselining. Update artifacts so evidence is complete. This sequence balances executive pressure with governance discipline. It demonstrates that predictive environments can adapt, but always with traceability and accountability. Practicing this rhythm prepares you for real-world pressures where executives want more speed than the plan allows. This case also underscores why resource histograms matter. They are often overlooked, but without them, crashing becomes guesswork. Histograms reveal where capacity is already maxed out and where additions could have the most effect. They prevent waste by ensuring that added resources are directed strategically. For example, adding engineers to a task that is not on the critical path does nothing to compress the schedule. The histogram, paired with the network diagram, ensures that resources are deployed where they actually matter. This is analysis in action. Float reports are equally valuable. Many executives assume that schedules can be accelerated by working harder everywhere. The float report proves otherwise, showing that only certain paths matter. A task with 10 days of float cannot accelerate the overall schedule if it finishes earlier. By showing float data, project managers educate stakeholders on the mechanics of scheduling. This evidence-based conversation reduces conflict and builds trust. It shifts the discussion from "why can't you just move faster?" to "here is where we can move faster and here is what it costs." That shift is critical for maintaining credibility. Phased delivery deserves emphasis. In predictive environments, phased value is often underutilized. Delivering part of the system earlier can meet executive needs without destabilizing the entire plan. For example, if reporting functions can be deployed separately, they may deliver value quickly while core systems continue development. This satisfies the urgency while preserving overall quality. It is a bridge between predictive rigor and agile responsiveness. Proposing phased delivery shows that project managers are creative while still disciplined. It demonstrates leadership beyond technical control. Ultimately, the lesson of this scenario is that predictive projects are not inflexible. They can adapt, but adaptation must be governed by analysis, artifacts, and approvals. Executives may demand speed, but project managers must show how speed can be achieved responsibly. Compression is not about working harder everywhere. It is about working smarter in specific places. The path to credibility is paved with evidence. Network diagrams, float reports, resource histograms, and documented approvals. By following this approach, project managers show that predictive methods can respond to pressure without losing integrity. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. The second case focuses on vendor management in a predictive environment, where formal contracts shape relationships as much as schedules and scope. A vendor working under a fixed-price incentive fee arrangement requests a change they describe as no impact. On the surface, the modification looks minor, but contracts rarely allow changes to be handled informally. Incentive mechanisms and ceiling prices mean that even a small adjustment can alter the balance of cost, schedule, and risk. The project manager must respond carefully, respecting both governance and the relationship with the vendor. The artifacts in play are the statement of work, the contract change clause, and the financial details of the incentive arrangement. The statement of work defines exactly what was purchased and delivered. The change clause describes how modifications must be requested, reviewed, and approved. Incentive terms, including the point of total assumption, define how costs are shared if overruns occur. By consulting these artifacts first, the project manager reframes the conversation from an informal vendor request to a structured contract discussion. This ensures transparency and protects both sides from misunderstanding. The disciplined response is to request a written impact analysis from the vendor, assess the effect on the point of total assumption, and process a formal modification if justified. The analysis should specify whether the change increases costs, alters deliverables, or shifts the schedule. The project manager then updates the risk register, checks alignment with baselines, and routes the modification through governance. Only after approval should artifacts be updated and changes implemented. This protects compliance, preserves evidence, and ensures the vendor's request is handled professionally. It demonstrates impact analysis before action, the cornerstone of predictive governance. Alternative responses are inadequate. Approving the change verbally may feel cooperative but undermines the change clause and destroys traceability, allowing the change and adjusting later risks disputes when costs rise or baselines are missed. Rejecting the request outright without review may harm the relationship unnecessarily, especially if the change has merit. Each of these shortcuts sacrifices either governance or trust. By contrast, structured analysis and formal modification honor the contract while maintaining collaboration. It proves that predictive methods can be firm without being inflexible. This scenario underscores why contract literacy is critical for project managers. Understanding fixed-price incentive structures, ceiling prices, and points of total assumption allows managers to spot when seemingly small changes carry significant implications. It also reinforces why documentation must be precise. Contracts exist to reduce ambiguity. When ignored, they invite disputes. By anchoring the response in contract terms, the project manager demonstrates fairness and professionalism. The vendor sees that the process is transparent, and governance bodies see that rules are respected. This balance preserves relationships while protecting the organization. The third case explores requirements ambiguity late in the project, just before sign-off. The sponsor argues that a feature meets the intent of the requirement, but the quality assurance team cites missing acceptance criteria. This is a delicate moment. Pressure to close is high, but unresolved requirements risk undermining compliance and satisfaction later. The project manager must decide whether to accept intent, escalate immediately, or facilitate clarification. This is not just a technical issue. It is a governance moment where baselines, traceability, and acceptance records are tested. The artifacts to consult are the scope statement, the requirements traceability matrix, the acceptance criteria, and the sign-off checklist. The scope statement defines deliverables and boundaries. The RTM links requirements to design, build, and test evidence. Acceptance criteria provide the detailed definition of done for each feature. The sign-off checklist formalizes closure. By reviewing these artifacts, the project manager shifts the debate from intent to evidence. This ensures that sign-off reflects shared understanding, not subjective interpretation. The The disciplined response is to facilitate clarification of acceptance criteria with both sponsor and QA, update the requirements traceability matrix accordingly, verify through appropriate testing or evidence, and then proceed with sign-off. This approach protects compliance by ensuring acceptance is documented and traceable. It also protects relationships by giving both sponsor and QA a voice in the resolution. Once alignment is achieved, the decision is logged, artifacts are updated, and sign-off proceeds with confidence. This demonstrates professional maturity, resolving ambiguity through evidence and governance, not by fiat. Other responses erode trust. Accepting intent without evidence weakens traceability and risks failure in audits. Escalating immediately to the steering committee wastes leadership bandwidth if clarification could have been achieved at the working level. Quietly adding tests without updating artifacts undermines transparency and creates hidden work that may resurface later. Each of these approaches sacrifices either compliance, efficiency, or trust. By contrast, facilitated clarification and documented updates produce a clean acceptance trail. It is slower in the moment but faster overall because it prevents disputes after closure. This case shows why the requirements traceability matrix is invaluable in predictive projects. It connects requirements to their verification, ensuring no ambiguity at sign-off. When disputes arise, the RTM provides evidence. Was the requirement verified and how? By updating it with clarified criteria, the project manager ensures that future audits can see exactly how the issue was resolved. This artifact is the bridge between business intent and technical delivery, and in predictive environments, it is the key to clean closeout. Across these predictive-heavy scenarios, schedule compression, vendor changes, and ambiguous requirements, the pattern is consistent. Executives, vendors, and sponsors create pressure for speed, flexibility, or closure. The project manager resists shortcuts and insists on structured analysis, artifact consultation, and formal approvals. Whether analyzing float and histograms, reviewing contract clauses, or clarifying acceptance criteria, the rhythm is the same. Log, analyze, approve, implement, update. This rhythm builds traceability, preserves baselines, and sustains trust. It is what distinguishes predictive professionalism from improvisation. The pitfalls are equally clear. Compressing schedules without analysis inflates risk. Approving contract changes verbally destroys governance. Accepting intent at sign-off without evidence weakens compliance. Each of these shortcuts may buy temporary relief, but leaves the project vulnerable. Professionalism is demonstrated by resisting the shortcut and following the policy path. Evidence, approvals, and artifacts are the language of predictive governance. They may feel heavy, but they are what protect projects when stakeholders, regulators, or auditors ask hard questions later. These drills remind us that predictive methods are not about rigidity but about traceability. They allow adaptation, but only through documented evidence and approvals. Executives can accelerate launches if paths are analyzed. Vendors can adjust if contracts are modified. Sponsors can clarify requirements if acceptance criteria are updated. The key is that no change is invisible. All are recorded, approved, and aligned to baselines. This is what creates organizational memory and protects project credibility. It is why predictive environments remain essential in contexts where accountability is paramount. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.